stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everyone. We will call the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. And we will move on to item number 3, public comments. Is there any public comments? Is there any public comment? Okay, hearing no public comment, we'll move on to item number 4, approve the minutes from the June 4th, 2019 regular meeting. Can I have a motion to do so? Motion by Al, second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes 5-0-2. And please note Stefan and Trish's abstentions. Item number 5, approve minutes from the June 4th, 2019 public hearing. Can I have a motion to do so? Motion by Bob, second by Al. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes 5-0-2. And please note Stefan and Trish's abstentions. Item number 6, discussion with HR Director. So in our continuing series of having department heads come in and report, we're going to have the town's new HR Director, Chris Pelosi, come in. He's going to give a presentation, about 5 or 10 minutes, just kind of give us an update as to what he's done so far, what he envisions going forward, talk about some of the needs and things, and then we could take questions at the end. So Chris, if you want to come up and if you wouldn't mind talking into the microphone, that way they can hear you at home.
I would say it's been a successful and productive past 2 to 3 months building the town's HR department, as well as taking stock as to where we are with various HR objectives. Particularly, I consider policy development and constant revision of town policy to be at the backbone of every HR department. And so with that, I have started to review town policy as well as identify areas that those policies might be improved upon, revised, or added to. An example of that being the town's time and attendance policy. One thing that has become clear to me is that the town could probably benefit from a more reliable and dependable method of enforcing its workplace rules and regulations, specifically relating to attendance and punctuality. I would also say that with that, we should look to establish clear procedures and guidelines surrounding the use of time-keeping devices. So with that, I have drafted a new time and attendance policy for the town. I've met with both department heads and union presidents to review that policy and get feedback on it. I believe I've heard from just about every department head at this point. I may need to meet with 1 or 2 people before I can create a final draft and distribute that to our employees. At this point, I'm looking to meet with our Director of Operations, our Finance Director, as well as our representative at ADP to discuss implementation and roll out a plan as far as what that looks like over the coming months. In addition to that, I'm looking at drafting a structured onboarding policy for new employees. I feel as though there should be a formal and structured onboarding policy. I think that it would aid in outlining and setting clear expectations for new staff coming on, and ultimately drive retention and employee engagement. And I consider that to be an important item moving forward. In addition to looking at the town's policies and reviewing them, we've conducted several trainings since I started. as well, specifically a bloodborne pathogen training for our public safety personnel. We've done an online injury reporting training for supervisors to reduce the lag time between an injury occurring in the workplace and being reported to PMA. I'm looking at organizing a sexual harassment training for all of our supervisors that we should be holding roughly every 2 to 3 years. We just wrapped up our annual healthcare enrollment. That enrollment window began sometime the first week or two in June and concluded at the end of the month. Cigna has all of our eligibility changes, and they're in the process of getting those to stick on their end. I'm looking at adding an employee wellness program potentially in the future, both through contract negotiations with the various unions. We're in the process of negotiating the police contract now. I'm hopeful that with Kurt and the rest of the guys, we could get it wrapped up by the end of September. I'm hopeful. As far as recruitment's concerned, we just recently filled our full-time administrative assistant to the first selectman. With that, I will be engaging her in some of the projects that I have as far as getting us into compliance with our personnel files and becoming more organized. We also added a full-time community services assistant position, and we are looking at a part-time payroll clerk in the finance department that we've been trialing for a number of months now. She seems to be adding a great deal of value, so we're exploring the possibility of adding her as a part-time staff member as well. Are there any questions as far as where I am so far with developing? Sure, absolutely.
Question. Do we have an employee assistance program in place?
We do. We have behavioral health consultants with Jim Riscotti,
Yep.
and I believe that's been in place now for a number of years.
Great.
Sure.
And so when you refer to policies, just a quick follow-up on that. You're talking about the employee handbook?
I'm talking about the employee handbook as well as looking at adding to it or creating new policies in addition to the employee handbook. I'm not sure whether the employee handbook is something that I want to add to or whether I may look at breaking it out into separate and distinct policies at this point.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have two questions. The time and attendance
Microphone.
when you were working with, the time and attendance when you were working with the teams, were they receptive of that program that you were thinking through, and everybody was
Absolutely.
on board?
I had positive feedback from both union presidents and department heads. There were some concerns as to how it would be, as far as the administrative component, to how it would look for department heads as far as being able to manipulate time entries within the software. But there was nothing that I wasn't able to address in those meetings to instill a sense of confidence in our department heads moving forward with the implementation of
That's good.
the software module. Yeah.
And the other one on the onboarding, were you considering something that's more repeatable, like something that you record that they can watch, or are you going to try and do something that's more manual based?
I think that to start, we'll look at something that's more manual based until we can roll out an employee self-service portal where maybe we have an online portal that employees can log into and view their all of their onboarding materials, all of their onboarding paperwork online prior to coming in, visiting with me their first day. I think something like that would be the appropriate vehicle to launch more of an online video recorded type of.
More repeatable.
Correct.
Right.
But until we're there and until we have an employee self-service portal like that, I think something that's just more structured and manual, just so that we have something in place, that's going to be my path, I think, for the next few months.
Thank you.
Sure.
Trish?
How are you clearly defining the accountability the employees have to adhering to any of the policies in place or changes that you make and garner support for?
Sure. Constant communication with our employees and our department heads, and maintaining a level of transparency between department heads and employees as far as what department heads expect of their staff. This is a small enough town in that I found that I can be present and appear in person a lot of the time. I have no problem meeting with employees one-on-one to discuss what some of these policies mean for both department heads and their staff. So it's kind of nice in that I feel like I could really get around and meet with people individually to make sure that everyone's being held accountable and that the policy is being applied uniformly across all departments.
So you have a plan in place to hold employees accountable to those
Absolutely.
policies? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Maureen? Rob? Stefan? Anybody?
My only concern, not concern, but just thought, so you've been meeting with everybody. Has anyone brought anything up to you that you hadn't considered yet? Anybody have any concerns since we haven't had an HR for over a year?
There's nothing that's really struck me as nothing that I wouldn't expect, as far as, not having an HR function for the past few years. I would imagine some people have raised concerns as far as not having the annual enrollment each year, as far as making changes to their health insurance. But that's probably one of the bigger concerns that I've faced since I've started. There really hasn't been too much that I wouldn't expect to hear from employees at this time.
Sure. Stefan, anything, or?
No.
You good? Anybody else? All right, so Chris will probably come back in probably 2 or 3 months and give us another update.
Sure.
Just how the time and attendance is going, how other things have progressed.
Great.
But if you feel there's something that you want to let the board know, please feel free to just let us know, and we'll give you any time you need.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 7, discussion take possible action with town engineer regarding roads. All right, so just to give you a little background, we're going to do this just like we did the last time we did a potential bond issue. So what Brian is going to do is give us a presentation about what he thinks we should be considering. We'll have 2 weeks to kind of digest that information. 2 weeks from now, we'll get together, we'll talk about the specific roads, what of Brian's recommendations we agree with, what changes do we want to make. Brian will obviously be here to be a part of that conversation. We'll come up with a final package. From that, Rich will create verbiage for a ballot question for November, and we will vote on that at our last meeting in August, so that it will be placed on the ballot. We had originally hoped to have this done sooner. We're talking about the roads tonight as well as communication, but because it's going to be wrapped in with the community center is going to go right up until the 12th hour in August, trying to get all that done. So I didn't want to just have the roads and communications voted on by themselves. That just doesn't make sense to pay for a referendum for just those 2 questions. So we'll do everything in November. The only reason that I wanted to do it sooner rather than later was so that we can control our own destiny with interest rates, so we wouldn't miss any type of cycles. But in speaking with the financial advisors, they think that we should be relatively stable for the next few months, so we're not going to miss out on any opportunities. Actually, I have a call with S&P scheduled for next Tuesday, just to get an update as to where we are with them and to answer some questions that they have. Just kind of a follow-up on our last 2 bond presentations. They want to see how some of the things that we committed to doing, where we stand on those, and we've actually completed everything, so we should be in relatively good shape. So, again, with that, we're going to let Brian do his initial presentation, then we'll take questions, we'll digest all the information, and then we'll circle back again 2 weeks from now. So with that, now this is the first time that we're going to use our new touchscreen. So this is what we're going to try to have for all of our presentations going forward. We're eventually going to get it to a point where the entire packet is up there and we just move through the packet. So Brian and the chiefs are all here tonight. They're going to do their presentation as well, so this is going to kind of be a test. So with that, Brian, we turn it over to you. And if you move, can you take the microphone and bring it with you? And Roy will follow you with the camera.
So for the record, Brian Asteriak with B&B Engineering. What you see up there on the board is obviously a map of the town. It's probably not as clear as I had hoped, but that is a color-coordinated map showing the grades of all the roads that's up to actually today. So I don't know if you can see it very well, but green is A. As you all know, I'll back up a little bit. As you all know, back in 2016 when I took the job, one of the items that was given to me was to go around and assess the entire town and all the roads and what needed to be done. So this is just a couple generations after that. But what you see, green would be A, blue is B, yellow is C, and orange is D. One thing that you might notice is there's no red, which would be F. Over the past few years, we've been able to wipe out all the F roads. So just to give a recap over the past 3 years, again, I came on in 2016. I took over a couple of jobs from my predecessor. He had been, I think, allocated a few $1 million to do some road work. We wrapped that up in 2016. Then there was another bond issue in 2016 that was approved. That was $5 million, and we have just wrapped that up this year. So since then, we worked on, since I took over, we did about 15 miles of roads in town. Most were completely resurfaced or reconstructed. They should be good for at least 15 to 20 years. In all, from the time we started, and that includes my predecessor, we've done about 25 miles of roads. This is a list of all the roads that we've done since about 2014.
Lengthy list.
Like I said before, we've taken out all the F roads. We took out a lot of the D roads. We kicked a bunch of C roads up to A. We did tackle a lot of the high use roads that may have been C, but we kicked those up to A. In the case of like Mountain Road, we've been targeting that a lot, and we've gotten it from like a C minus to up to maybe a B minus, just by doing some of the what I call heavy patching, which I'll get to later. So we also have 2 grant applications that are in the works, and they're called lot SIPs. We have one grant application. Oh, they're both approved, by the way. We have one for Holbrook, which is a complete reconstruction of Holbrook. I'm sure everybody knows about this, but for the record, I'll just go through it. We have a current price tag of around $5.4 million. The design is 100% complete. It's been sent up to the COG for final review. Right now, I'm working with the town attorneys to secure a handful of easements that need to be done, and it will not be allowed to progress until those easements are secured. We have a handful to get from the town of Oxford, which I don't foresee to be a problem. I think a couple from the DEP. Again, I don't think it'll be a problem, but they are governments and we'll have to deal with it. And then there's a couple just from a few residents that are along the road. Again, I don't see some big problems, but we do have to go through the legal process on that. My hope is those will be secured in the next few months and we'll be able to go out to bid in the fall. The second lot SIP application, which has been pre-approved, is for West Church, Bungay, and Botsford. That's a partial reconstruction, sidewalk, and just general repair from the Historical Society up to the high school, and then from Botsford Road, from Mountain Road to Gray Hill Road. One of the primary goals of that is going to be to allow sidewalk access from the Historical Society all the way up to the high school. So we're going to fill a lot of the gaps that exist. There's a bunch of sidewalks that are there, but there's a bunch of little areas that don't have sidewalks, so we're going to fill that in. That design is 50-60% done. By the end of the summer, we'll have that done, and we'll start understanding what easements we need for there, and what other big obstacles. We have to go through third-party review through the COG. That always brings in a few challenges, but they're nothing insurmountable. So again, that hopefully is through the COG machine, so that we can go out to bid next year and maybe even construction next year. Another small thing we're doing is analyzing and coordinating crack sealing and striping of all the roads. I have visual displays of them, but unless you guys really want to see them, I don't know if you'll be able to kind of get it on this screen. But one of the really important things after doing these types of this road work is maintenance a few years after. So the pavement does crack. You can't avoid that just with temperature expansion and contraction. It creates cracks. Water gets into that crack and expands through freezing, all that, and creates potholes. If we crack seal them, you get a lot more longevity with these roads. So every year we have about $50,000-$60,000 that we've been spending on crack sealing these roads. We've been tackling mainly the ones that were paved by my predecessor and a couple that we did when I first got here. This year we'll be doing the same. As we do more and more of these roads, clearly the crack sealing budget needs to increase if we want to keep up with this stuff. And again, striping, my plan is to stripe the entire town within the next 2-3 years. We've gotten about, I'd say, almost half of it striped over the past 2 years. And we do go back to all the high-use roads, Bungay, Mountain, Skokorat. We do go back to them every year or 2 years, depending on what they are. But we'll probably have the whole town striped within the next, I'd say, 3 years or so. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yes.
Good.
So we're talking about the West,
Microphone.
there we go, West Church, Bungay, and Botsford. And we're
Yes.
talking about the sidewalks coming from the Historical Society all the way up to the high school. Are the sidewalks gonna be on both sides of the roads, on one side?
No. And there will be a couple crosswalks in there. I don't think we have the budget to get it on both sides, plus there's some topographic issues.
Right.
So it depends on where you are, where the sidewalks are going to be. Down on I guess it would be the north end of the roadway system. It jumps back and forth with existing sidewalks, so I'm just going to basically put it in where it makes sense and then have a crosswalk.
And then, just talking, because we have spoken about this at a couple other meetings, and, people who watch the videos have questions about it. A lot of concerns are coming about where the funeral home is, that turn, and when there's a funeral there, it's kind of get congested. So is that area going to be addressed as well, being widened?
It's one of those things that I haven't quite figured out how we're going to make that better. I can't change the turn. I can't
Right.
change the radius of the turn. It would just be too cost prohibitive. I don't know whether I want to really put parking on the street, but we definitely have to be sensitive to how that geometrically works out. My expectation is that not much is going to change over there. Where the center line is really in the center of the street, they park on both sides of the street, and we just got to make it do with what we have. What I could do is what I'm going to do up by the school, which is actually put in spaces along the sidewalk and then create a appropriate lane width so that all the parking stays on one side. So that's just for safety. I just don't know if there's enough room down by the funeral home to be able to do that. But once we have all the geometry figured out, we'll give it some good attention to try to figure out the best thing. But it's just it's a tough situation over there, and I don't know if there's anything that we can fully do to fix it.
I did have one question.
Sure.
You referenced condition of drainage on the sheet, and whether it's good or bad. Is there actions that, whether anything can be done at that point with the drainage? Or, because if you've done a road over and the draining is poor, then at some point that's gonna be, we might be considering those roads a little quicker to repair. Because there's a couple of them that would reference decent, good, pavement grade of A, but mediocre drainage, or poor
So-
drainage, or B and poor drainage.
Yeah. Not to pass.
Correlating those pieces together, is there anything we should be considering when we're thinking about roads to repair?
There's nothing planned for these roads because it's poor, but it's working.
Okay.
And that was basically the reason. Some of these, like the ones above this dark line here, were done by my predecessor.
Yeah.
So I don't have a good answer for those, although there's no complaints for them. When we say poor drainage, it basically means there's either little or just a few bleed offs, but there's no conventional drainage system. But that doesn't necessarily mean the water's not going where it needs to go. So,
I'm just going by Lowe's.
yep, understood.
Yep.
Any of the areas that we're proposing, anytime we can fix the drainage, that's part of the project. But these, there's nothing on this sheet that actually is urgent to try to fix it in drainage because it's just working. It's just not working in a conventional way.
Okay.
Well, if I could jump in too, when we started back in 2012, we were so far behind at that point. We had to make some sacrifices, and, you know, some of these roads that may have needed some drainage because of the cost to put some of the drainage in would have not allowed us to do as many roads as we did. So we tried to make a best guess as to, you know, getting the roads done. The sooner we can get through the whole cycle, we can now come back, and now that our road stock is in good shape, now we can start investing in drainage when we're coming back to hit those roads again. So,
Yep.
you know, now that we've been able to catch up, well, I shouldn't say catch up, because I think we'll never be totally caught up, but now that we've been able to have such an impact on it, to Brian's point, now drainage is a priority when we're doing these roads. So we're investing now, so we don't have to do that again.
Thank you.
But to Brian's point, some of that was done before he was here, so. Clinton Road, baby.
Okay, so getting to my recommendations for the roadways. What I just gave you is a spreadsheet of the roads that I'm proposing on this first round to start tackling if a bond issue was to be approved. The top three are just the lot SIP applications that we talked about. So those are kind of on a side project. And then below that, we have 25 roads, well, 25 projects, I'll get to that in a second, but 25 projects that I'm recommending. The top projects, the top 4, is the industrial park. Last time I think I was here, my opinion was we need to tackle downtown. Downtown was the face of the town. And we did, and I think it came out great. I think the next thing that we have to tackle is the industrial park, because obviously it's a big revenue generator. There's a lot of traffic that goes through on a daily basis, and the roads need it desperately. So I put the 4 roads up in the industrial park next on the list. Most of them, Progress, Haddad, and Silvermine, are actually in decent shape from the asphalt down. So the base is good. We just did Cogwheel from 67 to Progress. I don't know if anybody's been up there. That was actually the last bit of money that we had from the original $5 million bond issue that I was administrating. And the road came out beautiful. It was one of the easiest roads that we've ever had to do because it was clearly done correctly to begin with. So I anticipate that and hope for that if we do go ahead with the rest of the roads. The only one that needs a full reclamation or full reconstruction is the rest of Cogwheel. And I think it's just because there's been so many trenches dug across that weren't properly backfilled when they finished it. There's so many different bumps along the way. The rest of them can probably get away with just a mill and repave, which is just taking off the top 2 inches and then putting down a new surface course. We'll take a look at that a little more closely if we go forward to the next step. But sometimes we'll take the whole section out, the 4 inches, and then replace it. But either way, I don't think they're in that bad shape. The next group are high-use roads, and they're roads that we're getting a lot of complaints on. Seymour Avenue, Southwest Road. I'm going to jump down to Shelton Street, Pershing Avenue, Clinton Road. I'm sure everybody's heard Clinton Road needs to be on there. those are the ones that I've put in there. Old Ansonia and Mountain Road. I'm jumping around here, but Old Ansonia and Mountain Road, I put in there saying heavy patching. I refer to heavy patching is what I've done on Mountain Road. I've done it on Old Ansonia. It's taking out large sections, 2-inch, most of the time 2-inch overlay, 2-inch mills, and replacing that section for 100 feet, 200 feet, maybe 50 feet in some places. It's just taking out the worst places of that road and replacing it. We did it with Mountain Road over 2 different work sessions, and the road has improved a great deal. So we don't have enough money to redo all of Old Ansonia or all of Mountain and put in drainage and put in all the things that it possibly might need, but we can make it at least a little smoother, a little better alignment, and get rid of all the potholes and the broken up asphalt. So that's what I'm proposing there. A little further down, we have Eleanor and Edward. The reason I put those on, other than the fact that they could use it, they're over off of Bunting in Chatfield. We've done almost the rest of the neighborhood, and those are broken up. They can definitely use it, but it might be nice to just clean up the neighborhood and finish it off. What's in yellow here? Those are areas that are outside of the roads, but they're still town property. Downtown, we're always needing some money for downtown. Sidewalks are always breaking, curbs are always breaking. I put in 200,000 just over the next few years. I'm sure there's going to be some need for it. The community center, now that may change if for some reason the town decides to go ahead and build a new one, but the sidewalks need some attention, the parking lot needs some attention. It might be prudent to consider putting some money over there if the town decides to just continue to use it. Something that somebody in my office actually brought up was the Chatfield Park parking lot. I don't even know if you want to consider that, but it's just a gravel, empty lot. I don't know how much it actually gets used, but perhaps we did it up at Gary Park. We kind of cleaned that up. If it gets used a lot, maybe you want to consider putting in a small parking lot with some stripes and some organization down there. The last 5 are really small roads that are in bad shape, but they're really small roads, so that's why they're at the bottom of the list. They probably have anywhere from 4 to 10 houses on them. They can definitely use the work, but again, they're not high-use roads, so those would be the ones that I would recommend. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, so if you have any general questions, whether it be on specific roads or philosophy, I mean, certainly ask now, but don't feel you have to ask all your questions now if you want to think about things. Like I said, Brian will be back at our next meeting, and that's when we'll actually make decisions. But, so fire away with your questions.
One thing I'll mention, and you probably already know this, with an infusion of money, $3 to $5 million, we'll be able to wipe out pretty much any road that anyone's complaining about. I do feel strongly about that. I mean, we've come to a point where more than half of our roads are B- or better. So we're getting into a really good place, and one more infusion of money, I think, will do the town a lot of good stuff.
Okay, so questions? Anyone? No?
I'm going to say something about sidewalks, because I know last time,
Good.
sidewalks. I'm a huge proponent of sidewalks everywhere, I'd like to see them all the time. But,
Sure.
Is that something where things will be budgeted a certain way, and maybe more money's found, and can pop in certain areas?
Do you mean new sidewalks, repairing old sidewalks?
Well, I mean, as you have this list, do you have anywhere near those columns where you say, hey, in going through, this would be a really good place to have a sidewalk if we can budget for it later?
The reality is there's more sidewalks that need repair than we have money for. So it's more been a case-by-case basis. Up on like 1st and 2nd and 3rd Aves, I mean, all the sidewalks up there need full replacements. Down on Maple Street, that all needs some serious work. Washington Ave. So I didn't actually target it. We more like just deal with it when it comes in front of us and says we got to get this fixed. But there's plenty of sidewalks to be done. I'm not really proposing to add any sidewalks, merely because there's no money, other than on the Bungay-Botsford project. But if there are any specific sidewalks that I should be looking at, I'm happy to look at them and try to get them in the budget.
I'd like to,
Sidewalks are expensive, just so. And they should be.
yeah,
I mean,
Right.
they're very well used.
yeah, I'd like to just piggyback on that as well. You know, I think it would be a noble goal to be looking to bring sidewalks on any road that we repair or repave up to, you know, top of the line. You know, I understand there's no money to go back now and repair sidewalks in some places, but if we're redoing a road, this is kind of the opportunity to get the money for it. So I would be strongly in favor of anywhere that we're fixing the road, we should be fixing the sidewalk. But, you know, that's one guy's opinion.
One thing I could do is add another column, and at least we'll understand which roads have sidewalks
Yeah,
and which ones
I'd
don't.
really like to see that,
Okay.
please.
So, and just to build, so the column, if it's a new, you're adding sidewalk? What it would
No,
be,
if
add
just if it's an
sidewalk?
existing sidewalk, at least we'll know when we look at this.
If there's one there already.
Is
No,
there
but
a
I'm saying,
sidewalk?
Could
and
you
does it
break
need-
it out? So if there's an existing sidewalk, what it would be to repair?
Yeah.
And then if there's no sidewalk, just get an idea of what it might be to add a sidewalk, if it's feasible. Some streets obviously don't.
Right.
So
Doesn't make
yeah, I mean, I could,
Rural roads,
I could make a
really-
strong argument that we probably don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair the sidewalks on Cogwheel Lane, for example, because there's probably not gonna be a lot of pedestrians walking down to 67 from there. But if we're repairing roads in neighborhoods, or roads that connect to downtown from neighborhoods, those are probably ones that we should certainly be targeting, so people can have easier access without driving.
Because is that just as simple as a calculation based on the length?
for the most part, we do have to get a handle on the condition of existing sidewalks. So there's plenty of roads that have sidewalks, and there's plenty of roads that have broken up sidewalks, and there's plenty of roads that have sections of good sidewalks and bad sidewalks. Luckily, some residents take it upon themselves to just fix their own sidewalk, which is good. Job.
So I think, you know, we have 25 roads here. I don't know that that's unreasonable to ask for some sort of more information on those roads, at least.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not, I would love to see us catalog every sidewalk in town and figure that out, but that's, you know, that's a massive project that's outside the scope of this. But I'd like to at least, you know, I would like to commit to any time we are doing new roads or repaving roads that we are also making our absolute best effort to upgrade the sidewalks along with it. If nobody else wants to talk about sidewalks, I have one other question.
Sure, oh, no, keep
Okay.
firing away.
No, I just didn't, it'd be easier to contain this conversation.
Okay, well, on your annual report, can you start adding
Yep.
sidewalks then, to Lon's point?
We'll put it on the spreadsheet, the master spreadsheet, and we'll just start filling the gaps.
As I'm not sure how much you hear this, but it's unbelievable to me how much I hear about sidewalks in town. It's something that my eyes have been really open to since I started serving on this board, to an unbelievable degree, because I never really considered them much, but it's a huge thing for people. So I want to make sure that we are continuing to keep that in mind.
And they get used if they're there.
Yeah,
They really do.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so then my other question is, you might have mentioned this, I may have missed it. With the lot SIP grant for Bungay Road and West Church Street, exactly how far up Bungay Road are we talking?
Just to the high school.
Oh, to the high school, so where it becomes Botsford?
Yeah, just to that intersection.
Okay,
actually.
that's perfect, because
There's
I know
already a
that,
sidewalk
I know
that
that area outside of Bungay School is troublesome.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, so, and I hear complaints about that constantly. It's like a broken record, so I'm glad that that will be addressed. Otherwise, thank you, as always, for thorough reporting, and I agree with you that it's probably time to address the industrial park and certainly Clinton Road, so, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? For Brian? Everybody's good? Does anybody want any additional information made available for our next meeting for the final discussion to make, or for the discussion to make the final decisions? That came out all wrong. And if you want something, you feel you need something, please email it to Rory and I. We'll get it to Brian, so Brian can come prepared, and, you know, we're not dropping too many bombs on him. If anyone would like that
chart in a form or sent to them, we can certainly have that done as well.
I forgot to mention that that is a new map, and again, it's really small, so I don't know if it's really doing what I wanted it to.
We'll go
But
blow it up.
those, what's in red is the lot zip, and what's in blue is what I'm proposing
We'll blow it up.
on this list. I will.
Just don't get your fingerprints on it. Tom Amy's got to present still. See, so that helps a little bit. Colors.
So again, the red are the lot zip. This is that upper section of Benham here. There's the high school right there, going down to the Historical Society here. So that's the section of lot zip that we're doing. And all these blue roads are the areas that I'm proposing that we tackle in the next round. Obviously, this is Mountain Road. Again, we're just targeting bad areas. And there's only a few bad areas left because we've done most of the really bad areas over there. Same with Oldie and Sonia over here. Oldie and Sonia needs a lot of work, but we're getting there. This is the section that is the industrial park, and I think we need to fully do that from top to bottom.
Okay, so everybody's good? All right, so again, if you have any, if you need any additional information, if you have any questions, please send that over so we can get that information to Brian so he can be prepared. Brian will be at our next meeting. So the goal at our next meeting will be to make a final decision like we did last time. These are the roads that we project to do. Obviously, there's always some changes that come up, and we kind of talk about those as that happens. But I want to have the list voted on so Rich can put the questions together, so that way we can take a final vote at our second meeting in August, give it to the town clerk, and it will be on the ballot for November.
With that, can I just ask one more?
Sure.
I remember when we had gone through this last time, we had a full packet of every road in town. And we still have that, right?
Yeah, you want? Yeah.
I would like that, just because I'd like, not that I'm gonna necessarily disagree with you on your recommendations, but I know last time we did a little bit of jockeying, and we did kind of swap in and out some roads.
Do you want the actual book, or it's online too?
If it's online, just point me in the direction, and that's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it's on the website, or you can take that. And I have extra copies. There's also one in Kurt's office.
I might be murdered if I bring this home, but I'll look online.
I'd be murdered if I bring this home.
But I'll take a look online, and like I said, I think we did a great job last go around. But I would like to just kind of look with full context.
Sure.
See if there's anything that we
No,
might
no
know anecdotally that should slide in as opposed to
Absolutely.
something.
I mean, that's why I'm here, and
Yeah.
at least one of the reasons I'm here. If there's any roads that you feel should be bumped up or at least added to this list, please do
Okay.
speak
great.
up.
Well, yeah, that's what the next meeting, to have those discussions like we did last time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to be armed with that information. I knew we had that at some point. Okay.
Yeah, that, just so everyone understands, that's the road report that gets updated every year. So Brian sends his folks back out, they re-review every road is ranked, and it's updated every year, so that way we have a constant understanding of where we are. So,
Yeah, and I would urge all of you guys to, if you can find the time, take a little bit of time and go through it, at least if you have some roads in mind that might not be on this list, because there is an opportunity for us to, kind of talk that out and argue it, and Brian doesn't take offense, so we'll.
Not at all. A lot of the roads that are on this list only got there because people started complaining about them.
So if there's that road in the back of your mind that your aunt or whatever always complains about, start thinking about that, and then maybe take a look at it and see if it, if it's up to the muster or not. So
Like Clinton.
exactly.
well, that one.
Even though no one lives on Clinton. We all understand.
That one will be certainly up for discussion. Now, Rich, I mean, I just put an arbitrary cap of 5 million on this. Is it possible for us to put a question there that, I don't want to say leaves that number vague, but allows that number to be expanded? Or would it have to be 10 million as an example, but we don't have to spend that much? Okay. All right, so that's something to keep in mind is,
Because you want to
Yeah.
cap it, right?
the full amount. Okay. So could you start in your mind thinking about how we might word a question like that, but it's not so outrageous that people get scared and just vote no? This is going to be bond issue. Yeah. Yes, please. Attorney Ritter, not Attorney Chadwick. Yeah.
And it would be good not to limit it to specific roads. I don't know if it would be, but.
Yeah, well, we'll do it like we did last time, so we have some flexibility if we need to make changes based on whether it be grants or other opportunities that arise, just like we've done.
Correct
Now-
me, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were able to add roads onto the last one because
Oh,
we
absolutely.
found a lot of cost savings in the
Yes.
first year or two, and we were able to tack on some roads in the last couple of years. So we want to leave the flexibility for that. If these roads somehow come in at $4.2 million, we want to leave the flexibility to be able to
Yes.
spend that additional $800,000 on some of the roads that might have fallen off this list.
Right.
Yeah, which is what we were able to do with
Yeah.
the last issue.
Yeah, so let's just be careful.
And
about
there'll always be roads to do.
that. Oh, there's always.
Yeah, we'll never. We'll run out of money before we run out of roads.
I have one quick question based on your comment. I totally respect all of the people who are complaining about the roads that we put on the list because you were hearing those complaints, because obviously they're finding a problem driving on them whenever that is. But I'm curious to know what roads are not on here that you might have put on here had you not gotten those complaints? What would have been
So which of the roads that are on here because of complaints?
which ones would you have put on here had you not added those because you were hearing the complaints?
No, I put them all on. I just added to this.
You just added to
Yeah.
it? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because it's actually 5.7
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's above the 5 million, but I just added the roads that people are complaining about.
Okay.
And it's not just one
So you didn't
complaint,
leave the
it's
ones you thought
multiple
were important
complaints.
off? Okay, thank you.
Kurt, if I could ask a question of you, and Rob just kind of brought this up. I have mixed feelings about it, but how do you think it would be received if we posted something on the town's Facebook and asked people for either to come to a meeting to share input or, to comment their input? I know that there's a slippery slope where if people write something, they might think it's going to happen, which we have to be very clear about, but kind of crowdsourcing this a little bit.
I honestly, I think the best way would be to put something out on social media and just let folks, I mean, it's
Just
going
pile
to,
on and just see if a
it's
certain
going to
road
turn into a
happens.
free-for-all like it does.
Sure.
But we'll be able to at least pull some roads out of there, some
There might be a road
consistency.
that comes up
Never
30
thought of.
times or something that we didn't really think of, and it might be a C on the list, because there were some last time. I think we agreed that we want to get rid of all the Fs. There's a lot of Ds, but, some of the Cs might actually be more impacted than the Ds because the
Right.
Ds are a smaller road, so there's all kinds of things
Right.
like that, so.
Absolutely.
It does become very subjective, though.
It definitely does, but this is a subjective process. Even your grading system is somewhat subjective. It's not
Sure,
it's not
sure it is.
perfectly objective. So there's a lot of room for subjectivity, but we could definitely dive into a full study of exactly how many houses are on each road. We can do a traffic study on each road if we wanted to, and we could dig in like that. But otherwise, we're just going off of what we know of that people use. So I think the more information we get, the better, and some of that information could be what people say.
We can
Yeah.
put some out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So Roy, you want to make a little note, we'll wordsmith a little. Again, I don't know.
It's not a perfect idea because there
You know
is
what
going to
happens
be.
with those
Oh,
things,
I know,
but-
because there is going to be hey, I said my road sucks. You guys went into your meeting and you didn't pick my road. Now I'm mad. That is
Right.
certainly going to happen. But I don't know if I think the pros might outweigh the cons on this. I'm not sure.
I think they will.
So.
But to that, if someone said, well, you didn't pick my road, and I'm saying my road stinks, and you guys are jerks for not picking it, the engineer has gone out and looked at it, and he can justify why
Based on
it
this,
wasn't
right.
picked.
Oh, for sure. And we could also point them to the YouTube videos of each of our meetings where we actually meticulously went through this, and it wasn't just like, hey, we're just going to do these ones.
Well, maybe we can even put this initial page out there
Well, that's,
and then say, are there any roads
That's
on
what I'm
this
saying,
list that are not?
this is what came up based on an analysis. Are we missing anything that might be more used than is there anything that might be more used than we realize, like over by Hull?
Yeah.
Maybe that's, like Stefan said, maybe that's a B minus C, but because it's such a well-traveled area so much, should jump ahead of something else. So,
We're good?
Thank you.
Yes?
Thank you.
Brian.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving right along. Item number 8, discussion take possible action regarding 38 Nichols Street blight fine. Okay, so just to go back, I pulled the minutes from our April 16, 2019 meeting, and just to kind of refresh everyone's mind, because Rob, I don't know how much of this you are aware of. So we had a situation at 38 Nichols Street. A house had fallen into disrepair. House was purchased by a new owner. The house was blighted. There was some miscommunication, misunderstanding. We'll call it a blight fine grew to a large sum. I believe it was $7,000. Owner came in. We had some discussions with the owner who's here tonight, so I'll let him jump in if anybody has a specific question. We gave the owner until essentially April to kind of come back and remediate all of the issues that were found. So fast forward to April, the whole outside of the house had been done. The only thing I think that was left at that point in April was the dumpster, because work was still being done on the interior. So, we had continued conversations. We were very happy that the process had moved forward. For the folks that live in that neighborhood, they were thrilled because now this nasty, disgusting house has been replaced by something that is, well put together. I believe it was Trish's idea to give him some more time, but have him come back at our first meeting in July to kind of give us an update, and we wanted to base it on a CO. Unfortunately, the CO is not there yet, but we're very close, and we'll give him a second to speak if he'd like. So we're kind of right there. So essentially where we are is he's back to give the update that we asked him to do for the beginning of July.
It's also important to note this property was purchased in this condition. It didn't deteriorate under,
Correct,
His
correct,
ownership,
right.
right,
He
right.
purchased it from the previous owner who let
to
it
rehab it. Mhm.
get into full disrepair. And this is, and again, he could weigh in again on this if anything's changed. This is not a flip house. This is a house that he will actually be living in. So again, he's putting it together to a certain standard that he wants to live in. So with that, and I never pronounce your name right. So if you just want to say your name and address for the record.
Benito Yurgales.
So
Good everybody.
I kind of gave a little bit of a summary. What more would you want to add to kind of what I've said?
Well, it was great. Basically, I'm here to ask for more time. That's what I'm here for.
What's holding up the CO?
Well, it was few inspections that had to get done. That's where it took me time and to get the CO. I got some update. I got pictures. I can.
So the inspections didn't pass, they still required you to do some work before they would
Well, yes.
give you the CO?
Couple things, yeah. But like when you go and redo the entire house, you have to go by steps. You got to call for inspection for plumbing, for electricity, for heating, ducting, and the framing, and then insulation. So that takes time. And a couple things it took more time than I didn't expect.
But there's been, so what's happened is he didn't give himself enough time,
Yes.
is what this came down to.
And I stand by, we're not really in the business here in the town to really want to mortgage properties and be the owner of them, so you just have to continue to uphold your end of the deal and give us a reasonable amount of time so that we will continue to work with you.
Yeah.
Because at some point, we do expect it to be finished and everything
Well,
clear.
I need like a couple more months. That's what I am asking.
So what's the date?
I would say by in the middle of September, I would say between 10 and 20.
So why don't we say the first meeting in October
Yeah.
to kind of put a date on it. But again, from a blight perspective, there is no longer a blight issue because the house, the yard has been cleaned up, the roof is done,
Yeah, I have some pictures.
the siding is done. If you've taken a ride by, it is night and day from where it was. This is, all we're talking about now is the interior of the house, but unfortunately, that's a part of the whole package that we had talked about with him. So, again, so what we've done, again, Rob, just so you're aware,
yeah.
we essentially froze the blight fine as of that date back in October. So the blight fine is still there. We haven't eliminated it. That was kind of the stick
Yep.
to make sure that the work was getting done. But the carrot is if you're doing the work, that we're going to not add more. If for some reason he wasn't keeping up his end of the bargain, we reserve the right to go all the way back to October and bring the fine all the way forward. To his credit, I think he's met all of his requests of us, at least for showing up, providing information, keeping us updated. We'll check in from time to time with Jim, so Jim kind of lets us know that there's actually work
going on. It's just not that he's ignoring what's going on. It's just taking a little bit longer than I think he had anticipated that it would take. So,
Okay.
you know, my recommendation certainly would be at this point to give him to October 1st.
Mhm.
But to Trish's point, at some point, it's got to stop.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, I want you to think that, you know, is October 1st going to give you enough time to get this all done?
Yeah, basically I would say 3 weeks, because mostly everything's done. And like I said, I have pictures, you can see that everything's done, just the final things.
Well, why don't we do this then, if the board is okay with it? We'll put an arbitrary date of the first meeting in October, but if you get your CO and are done sooner,
Yeah.
you can let us know, come back, we'll put you on the agenda, and we'll do, if it's in August or September, we'll just take care of it, Rich, unless you
Yeah,
have
that
any,
would work.
Right, and
Any
that'll
issue with
alleviate
that?
the stress of having this hanging over your head,
right,
okay?
so.
I-
You know, then at that point, once you have the CO, then we'll have the discussion about, you know, the previous fine and everything, how that'll be addressed and handled, and we'll kind of go from there. So is that, everyone comfortable with that? Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
being as diligent as you are working with us. If anyone wants to see the pictures, I've driven by the house a couple times, and he's done a nice job, at least
I
on the
mean, really,
outside.
thank you for taking a blighted property, and I know it took you longer, and this has been a little bit of a headache, but for fixing it up and making that part of the town look better, I thank you.
Well, thank you. And, well, the fine wasn't, I had the property for 3 months when the fine went on, so I didn't expect that. Thank you for working with me anyways.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 9. We'll go 9A, which is 21 West Street. So in your package, you have a letter from the tax collector to the Board of Selectmen. Town of Seymour, per tax collector deed, volume number 567, page 960, recorded on December 26, 2018, is now the owner of 201 West Street. Please abate the following delinquent real estate taxes for the 2018 grand list of $572.04. This property was included in a tax sale held on June 26, 2018, with no bidders, and the redemption period of 6 months has expired. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Selectmen abate the taxes at 201 West Street in the amount of $572.04.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trish, second by Al. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. 9B, again, from the tax collector to the Board of Selectmen. The Town of Seymour, per tax collector deed number 567, page 956, recorded on December 26, 2018, is now the owner of 126, 128 West Street. Please abate the following delinquent real estate taxes for the 2018 grand list in the amount of $3,278.52. The property was included in a tax sale, held on June 26, 2018, with no bidders, and the redemption period of 6 months has expired. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. At this point, I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Selectmen abate the taxes for 126, 128 West Street in the amount of $3,278.52.
So moved.
Motion by Bob, second by Trish. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, one question.
away.
So these failed to sell, or I guess specifically to this one, it's failed to sell at a tax sale at the end of June.
Yep.
What's the path forward on getting this off our hands?
We could try to sell them
How often do we continue trying to sell?
from time to time. They're tough to do. So if you're interested in buying one, make an offer, Stevan, you can walk out with one of these today.
I certainly am not, but
You sure?
All I
Yeah.
gotta do is pay taxes, right?
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. Add a little something. Rich is ready to Rich will throw in free legal services. You take that baby away.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, I know there's
You
only...
thought you'd get in trouble for bringing the book home. Imagine if you brought home a whole house.
Sort of blaming yourself.
Well, yeah, because, it's... I know we were usually pretty lenient about blight, but it gets a little interesting when we're the owners of the most blighted properties in town. And then-
Yeah. I mean, and one of these properties was bad. We had Public Works over there for 3 days.
Oh, I
Going
know.
through, cleaning it up and-
I'm very familiar with these properties. so
Yeah,
I know what they look like.
128, the corner of,
Yeah.
corner is falling in right now.
All right,
So,
I guess that's all we can do.
any other comments, thoughts? Nope. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. But if you want to buy one of these houses, we will throw in 98 Bank Street as a bonus.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
That's how we're going to do it. That is a bonus. All right. Item number 10, discussion and take possible action regarding NEMBA trail application. Mr. Paterla. We're getting there.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I prepared a draft resolution based upon the presentation by the NEMBA folks, discussions with Kevin Condon, the Oxford town attorney. And what it essentially does is it gives them what they were looking for when they appeared in front of you. One, they were looking for permission to construct mountain biking trails on property owned by the town of Seymour in the Keith Mitchell Preserve. By enacting this resolution, you're telling them we're interested in proceeding. The conditions are we want to be named on an insurance policy in an amount deemed sufficient by the town, and that we'll support them in their goal of constructing trails on the Great Hill block of the Naugatuck State Forest and in Oxford on the property known as the Rock House Hill Preserve. In order to do this, we conditioned our approval upon the execution of a revocable license agreement which is satisfactory to the town, and that would give us the opportunity to basically terminate our approval even after this is done for certain reasons that we'll include in the license agreement, sufficient insurance coverage, and most importantly, the cooperation of the Seymour Land Trust to the extent some of the trails go over their property. No one has, to the best of my knowledge, talked to those folks. The town of Oxford, and we have had contact with Attorney Condon, but we're a little ahead of them by moving forward on this resolution, but we might as well get this process started, and deep, because they also want to build trails on Connecticut state property. So that's what this would do. We included a copy of a revocable license agreement just for illustrative purposes. This is not the document that we're saying that we're going to put in front of you subsequent to this approval at another time for passage. That was a document that was put together over a year ago when some of the same folks came forward to support the construction of trails, and that project never, to the best of my knowledge, went forward. They never obtained our final permission. We never entered into a revocable license. We drafted the agreement, sent it to Oxford for comment, and that project sort of disappeared. If you recall, the leader of the group that appeared in front of us, we had a lot of concerns because it was sort of a loose association of folks. They have now embraced the NEMBA Corporation, which allows them to provide insurance coverage. It's created some structural changes to the way we're trying to do this. So I think this is a good second step. I think the first step was they're coming here, giving us their vision, asking for our support. This would tell the world that we're interested in proceeding, but there are more steps that are going to have to occur, and I can't tell you how quickly they're going to occur. We're going to have to work with Oxford, and there'll be time on that. Getting permission from the state isn't always the easiest process in the world, but they are willing, and they did show proof of insurance, and we know their corporate history, and structurally it's a little different than what happened last time. So that's what went into the construct of this particular resolution.
Okay, so, Rich, then we can just approve the resolution as presented,
Yes.
and then that just gives you more to work with
Yes.
Attorney Condon
Yes.
to bring this together.
And these folks, we'll reach out to them, say, we gave you, here it is. Now, let's go to the next step and see where we are.
Okay. Now, the revocable license agreement, I know that Bob has made some suggestions.
Yes.
So if anyone has any comments on that, I mean, please get those to myself.
This
and then
document
we'll get it
was-
to Rich.
Was only a document between Oxford and Seymour
Right.
because there was no, it was a loose association of folks, if you will. It was an unincorporated loose association. I picture the next document being, it's going to be with NEMBA. And, you know, Oxford could enter, they will model their document on what we create for NEMBA.
My recommendations were only for, I wasn't sure if it fit this document or something further.
We could work that into the document. All those were good suggestions. Yes.
All right, so does anybody have any comments or thoughts right now?
It's going to be you determining, right, the adequate amount of insurance that we will
Well, the
require.
not just me.
Well,
the board
your
does, with Rich's
recommendation
advisement.
looking,
Yeah, we'll bring it back. We'll let you know what they come up with,
Okay.
but it'll be in reliance upon the town administration, and they'll talk to their insurance consultant,
okay.
H.D. Seeger.
All right, so Rich, I don't have to read the resolution.
No.
Okay. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution regarding the NEMBA trails as presented by Town Council Richard Biterla.
So moved.
Motion by Rob, second by Bob. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Item number 11, discussion, take possible action regarding Grand Light Tax Incentive Application. Okay, in your packets, we have the initial application from Grand Light LLC, which is on 104 Day Street. We're all familiar with Grand Light and what they do. So you can see on page 2, the project is expected to commence during the fourth quarter of 2019. The estimated value of improvements is somewhere between $200,000 to $225,000. So at this point, it has gotten the initial vetting from Sadie and Economic Development. So all we're doing is, again, allowing Grand Light to enter into the program. We're not going to determine any type of incentive yet until the project is completed, and we have an actual breakdown evaluation of all the work that is completed. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to initially accept Grand Light LLC at 104 Day Street into the Town of Seymour Tax Incentive Program.
So moved.
Wow. I don't know, we'll go Al and Trish. Everybody's kind of yelled out. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Item number 12, discussion, take possible action regarding MPI Proclamation. In your packets, we have a proclamation, which I will read into the record. It said, whereas Microboard Processing Incorporated is the leading electronics manufacturing service provider in Connecticut, and whereas Microboard Processing Incorporated manufactures a variety of products, including a critical defense program for the Pentagon, which controls mission and missile communications and equipment involved in cutting-edge 5G communication technology. And whereas Microboard Processing Incorporated has been recognized by governors and senators for its success as a thriving small woman-owned business in Connecticut. And whereas Microboard Processing Incorporated is being inducted into the American Manufacturers Hall of Fame at Housatonic Community College in recognition of their contributions to advanced manufacturing in the United States, then be it therefore resolved that I, W. Kurt Miller, First Selectman of the Town of Seymour, Connecticut, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, July 16, 2019, to be a day of recognition and celebration of their contributions to the Town of Seymour and the field of manufacturing. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand, and this 16th day of July 2018 caused this seal to be affixed. So I'll take my signature, then we will fold this up, and then we will bring this up to Nicole and all the folks at MPI. Any of you who may be interested in going to the Hall of Fame dinner, I believe it is in October. We'll provide information if anybody is interested in going. Depending on the price, maybe we'll buy tickets for the 7 of us to go. I don't want to say yes and then find out it's, $2,000 a ticket. So, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the proclamation as presented. Motion by Bob, second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Item number 13, discussion, take possible action regarding ordinances. Okay, so at our last meeting, we discussed two ordinances, the strategic planning and the surplus equipment. They have gone through all of the appropriate town public hearings. The ordinance committee has recommended these to the board. The board at its last meeting approved them as they stood, but based on our process, we cannot approve it until the next meeting. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the strategic planning ordinance as updated. Motion by Stefan, second by Bob. Is there any discussion? And Rich is under discussion. He's going to affect 21 days from tomorrow. There's no other thoughts? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. 13B is on surplus equipment. It follows the same process. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the surplus equipment ordinance update as presented. Motion by Stefan, second by Al. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. I'd like to make a motion to add to the agenda discussion and possible action regarding noise ordinance and not-for-profit exemption ordinance. Motion by Stefan, second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Okay, next item on the agenda, discussion and possible action regarding noise ordinance and not-for-profit exemption ordinance. We're not 100% sure if we actually moved the noise ordinance to the ordinance committee to start the process. So the ordinance committee will meet 2 weeks from tonight, or the first Tuesday in August. So we just wanted, number one, officially do that if we hadn't. And then there was a new ordinance that Rory uncovered, or excuse me, a statute, I should say. And Rich, I'll give you the numbers so you can dig into it. Section 12-1858 provides for a local option exemption for real or personal property that is leased to a charitable, religious, or nonprofit organization, and that is not exempt under any other subdivision of Section 12-81. In order for a town's legislative body to adopt an ordinance exempting property owned by such, I'm not going to use the word, that was the typo in here, an organization but leased to another user, the property must be used exclusively for religious, charitable, or not-for-profit purposes. So we have some properties that the owners are leasing the property out to not-for-profits. This would give the town the ability to abate taxes for the portion that is being used by the not-for-profit entity. So, the question now is, does the board feel comfortable forwarding that to the ordinance committee to allow it to start working on that with town council to then send something back for the selectmen to discuss?
Yes.
Everybody's okay? So then I'll entertain a motion that we move both the noise ordinance and what we'll call the not-for-profit exemption ordinance to the ordinance committee for review and presentation back to the full board. Motion by Trish, second by Stefan. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? The chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. Okay. Item number 14 is executive session. We are finally there, chiefs. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Selectmen go into executive session at 8:20 p.m. and that it invite in Chief Setkowski, Chief Lombardi, Chief Kelly, and Emergency Management Director Amy, along with Town Council Richard Baturla and Rory Burke. And Mr. Baturla, you'd like to add something?
For the purposes of conducting discussions related to security strategy in accordance with the exemption and the Freedom of Information Act.
Correct. The chiefs
And Rory will then be asked to leave executive session. At that point, we will discuss 20 Knorr Avenue blight fine, which is a legal issue.
That is a
Town council.
matter of pending litigation. That is also appropriate.
Okay. Motion-
Second.
Second by Trish. All in favor? Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0.